Good evening. I will entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Mayor. At this time, I would like to call the Monday, August 5th, Dalton City Council meeting to order. Agenda pulled up. Quorum is present, and Mr. Lama will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Council members, you have before you an agenda. I'll ask for an approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any public commentary? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead and move into if we have any presentations from department heads.
None this evening, Madam Mayor.
You have also had an opportunity to review the minutes of the mayor and council session of July 15th. There are no amendments. I'll ask for a motion to accept.
Motion to.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor? Okay. All right, item number 3, unfinished business. This will be the second reading of ordinance 24-17, the request of Jose Eduardo Franco Alejandre to annex 0.17 acres located at 1236 Fraser Drive into the city of Dalton as medium-density, single-family residential R3 parcel 12-179-02-061. Hey, Jean.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I'm standing in for Ethan Calhoun. You've seen plenty of annexations on this particular subdivision close to Park Creek Elementary. Again, it's a single-family dwelling. The current zoning is R3. The petitioner is asking to be annexed into the city. They're adjacent to city property right now. It received a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission and from the planner.
Any questions of Jean?
Move we approve.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, item number 4, second reading ordinance 24-18, the request of John S. Suttles to rezone from heavy manufacturing M2 to rural residential R5, attractive land totaling 0.70 acres located on New Doris Street, parcels 12-255-03-034, parcel 12-255-03-047, and parcel 12-255-03-057.
This property is zoned heavy manufacturing. It was part of the property that was caught up in the old Dalton pyramid zoning. Certainly is not appropriate to be manufacturing. It's a very small lot. The petitioner has already gone to the Planning Commission and gotten approval for a subdivision for 4 7,500 square foot lots to place single family dwellings on each of those lots. The future land use map is town neighborhood revitalization. And 4 single-family dwellings is probably the highest and best use for this particular piece of property. Received a favorable recommendation from the planner and a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Any
Motion
questions?
to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item number 5, second reading ordinance 24-19, the request of Todd Phillips to rezone from medium density residential R3 to high density residential R7, attractive land totaling 1.29 acres located on Main Street, parcels 12-183-08-013, parcel 12-183-08-002, parcel 12-183-08-010, and parcel 12-183-08-011.
This particular piece of property has very limited public road frontage. What Mr. Phillips is proposing to do is to rezone it to R7 high-density residential for the purpose of building 4 single-family units on the property. It's in the medical future development area, which encourages workforce housing. The staff gave it a favorable recommendation and the Planning Commission gave it a unanimous favorable recommendation also.
Any questions?
Was this one that we had to include some kind of ingress and egress or issue about that?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Farrell.
Yeah.
So it's got complete access. All those tracks have access through from the
You'll come in with a single drive serving all four of those, just like any other multifamily development.
I think that's the one, when we was talking about city standards, and he was, said as long as he made the driveway, if it's a private drive, he didn't have to do city standards, all right? Is that how that is?
Correct. Councilmember Goodlett, if it's a private driveway, that would not have to adhere to city standards. If it was a private roadway extension, it would, but as long as it's a driveway, it would not have to adhere to city standards. I can't recall, unfortunately, I wasn't here at the last meeting. Did the fire department have any concerns about that? Okay.
Any other questions? If not,
We approved.
motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Item number 6. Second reading ordinance 24-20, the request of Eric Rojo Aguilar to rezone from heavy manufacturing M2 to high density residential R7, a tract of land totaling 0.21 acres located at 204 East Matilda Street, parcel 12-200-05-008.
As you can see, this parcel is zoned heavy manufacturing. It is in a residential, somewhat residential area. It's bounded on one side by the railroad, to the west by single-family development, but by a commercial enterprise, across the street. It's a small lot, it's only 8,500 square feet in size. And I am the one that encouraged the property owner to rezone to R7. That is the only residential zoning district we have that allows a duplex on a lot as small as 8,500 square feet. R5 and R6 would require 10,000 square feet, which he doesn't have that much property. I received a somewhat favorable recommendation from the staff and a unanimous favorable recommendation from the planning commission.
And there would be the only R7 in that
It would be,
area.
but because of the small lot size, that would be all they could ever do there is one duplex.
Okay.
Considered being an island though?
I'm sorry?
Would that be considered an island, creating an
No,
island?
sir, I don't think we would consider that an island. It's compatible to what's going on in that area.
Okay. Any other questions of Gene? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Item number 7, Northwest Georgia paving change order number 1 for Tibbs Road, 2024 milling and resurfacing. Chad?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This request is to approve a change order number 1 for the annual asphalt resurfacing contract in the amount of $52,607.52. Work performed under this change order is necessary to repair failing subgrade on Tibbs Road and extend the life of the asphalt overlay in these problem areas. This has been approved by the Public Works Committee, and the project still remains well within budget. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Item number 8, Ryman Ridge Road traffic control change.
This request is to approve a traffic control change at the intersection of Ryman Ridge and Ridgeview Drive in the Ryman Farm subdivision. With the addition of Phase 6 portion of the subdivision, new traffic patterns have emerged with the completion of Ridgeview Drive that warrants the need for a 3-way stop at the intersection as described. This comes with a positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee as well. And I'll take any questions on this.
Any questions of Chad? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Gene. Again, item number 9, the first reading ordinance 24-21, the request of Nancy and Dagoberto Hernandez to rezone from heavy manufacturing M2 to general commercial C2, attractive land totaling 0.71 acres located at 417 Sheridan Avenue, parcel 12-241-13-006.
The purpose of this rezoning from heavy manufacturing to general commercial is the petitioner wants to open up a cheerleading academy at this location, which is not allowed in the heavy manufacturing zoning district. If it is changed to general commercial, it will just make the general commercial area larger and the heavy manufacturing area smaller. So it's a very minor change in that particular area. It's more conducive to commercial than it is to heavy manufacturing. It received a favorable recommendation from the planner, a unanimous recommendation from the planning commission. The future development map shows it as transit town neighborhood revitalization. And so staff has recommended that this be approved.
Okay. Are there any, we're not going to vote on it tonight. It's the first reading, but are there any questions of Jean? Not, we'll move on to number 10. First reading ordinance 24-22, the request of Teresa Acevedo to rezone from medium density, single family residential R3 to high density residential R7, attractive land totaling 0.4 acres located at 407 Sassafras Street, parcel 12-180-01-024.
This property is also known in the future development map as town neighborhood revitalization. It is a single family area. We've got lots of opposition at the planning commission from the people in that community opposed to having two duplexes built in their single family neighborhood. The planner gave it a negative recommendation. The planning commission gave it a unanimous negative recommendation. That's where it is before you now.
Is the petitioner going to retract the request or
No, they're hoping that you will approve it.
do they understand if correct? And you may be able to, this may be a Jonathan question. If they do not retract their petition, then if we vote against it, it's 1 year. Yes.
1 year to rezone. They could still use it as R3. If you deny it, it will just be R3 and they can build a single family house on that property.
Any other questions of Jean? Okay, item number 11, first reading ordinance 24-23, the request of Velke Reyes to rezone from heavy manufacturing M2 to rural residential R5, attractive land totaling 0.21 acres located at 512 Abigail Street, parcel 12-218-07-008.
Even though this parcel is currently zoned heavy manufacturing, there is a single family house on this property. It is an area that has a lot of mixture of uses, but the petitioner is asking to make their use a conforming use as a single family dwelling, which is why they're asking to rezone it from heavy manufacturing to R5. It received a favorable recommendation from the planner and a unanimous recommendation from the planning commission.
Okay, any questions of Jean? If not, move on to item 12, first reading ordinance 24-24, the request of Manny David to rezone from rural residential R5 to transitional commercial C4, attractive land totaling 0.19 acres located on Francis Street, parcel 12-258-02-102.
The petitioner has a business that's to the south and to the west of this parcel. He's been parking tractor trailers on this lot for many, many years and did not realize, even though it had the same tax parcel, that it was zoned differently than his business. He's asking for C4 to make his use that he's been using for years a conforming use. It did receive a favorable recommendation from the planner and a unanimous recommendation from the planning commission.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 13, first reading ordinance 24-25, the request of JFP Properties Group LLC to rezone from medium density, single family residential R3 to rural residential R5, attractive land totaling 0.26 acres located on 702 Northview Drive, parcel 12-201-01-060.
This is one of the few vacant lots in this particular subdivision. As you know, R3 only allows one single-family dwelling. The petitioner is asking to rezone to R5 so that he can put a duplex on this property. The planner gave it a negative recommendation because it was his opinion that this is not a community that has duplexes, and he thought it would be out of character with a single-family community. However, the planning commission had a different idea. They said that there were duplexes within a half a mile, and they did recommend that it be unanimously recommend that it be rezoned to R5 so that a single duplex could go on this lot.
Did the planner talk with residents in that neighborhood that are against it?
He did not. I received some objections from the people in the community, but no one showed up at the planning commission meeting.
Were those objections from people in that neighborhood?
Yes, that they did not want a duplex in their single-family neighborhood.
Were they worried about parking, or did they say,
I think they were just worried about the different type of
okay,
housing in their single-family neighborhood.
okay. Any questions of Jean? Okay, moving on to item 14, first reading ordinance 24-26, the request of Alejandro Martinez Lopez and Nayeli Alvarez to annex a tract of land zone, medium density, single family residential R3 totaling 0.17 acres located at 1218 Fraser Drive into the city of Dalton, parcel 12-179-02-052.
We're back in the same area that you've seen annexations over and over and over again, currently zoned R3. The zoning will remain R3. They're just asking to annex into the city.
Any questions?
Will we come to a point, like say if it's half, we can finally just put it all under umbrella? We just gonna continue to just go one by one?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I said, is there, I know we don't do forced annexation, but I mean, it's getting to a point now, it's coming up all the time. Is there something we could like send out? We could just put it all in one?
Suggest that they do it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We,
You could suggest it.
yeah, we have in the past, Councilmember Goodlett sent out voluntary annexation applications, where we have this, phenomenon of where 50% of it's city, 50% of it's county. We have not done that yet on Fraser Drive, but, Mr. Pangle has a standard letter that we can send out to, encourage that to improve the city boundary.
If that's being contemplated, I would suggest we look at other opportunity areas that you might want to send that letter out.
Yeah.
Because we're already now providing sanitation services on that streets. We're already going there, yes.
Sanitation services, we already, maintain the roadway. The roadway is all city right of way, as you can see on the screen there. And in prior cases like this, where it's in the benefit of the city to improve the boundary, we have, in some cases, waived the annexation fee. And that's something I would recommend to the council, that we give the neighborhood a 60-day opportunity to apply with no fee. And after the 60 days, they would be have to pay the annexation fee.
This kind of goes back to when it first happened, that they were being like advertised as city. People bought them because, like say, had some of the kids in school that thought they were still going to be going to the same school. Now they have to go out to Southeast for high school and everything else.
If that's something, Andrew, that we could ask that you and the fire and police chief and public works look at the areas that we serve and respond to for mutual aid, but that we don't collect taxes on.
Correct. And I will have Mr. Pangle send a list of the areas we've already done it for, and then we'll get together a committee and look at other areas we may not have thought of yet.
Thank you.
But does this particular area meet? I don't think when it was built, it didn't meet city standards on curbs and gutters and.
We were able to get them to put the curb and gutter and driveway aprons in per city requirements because it was a city maintained and owned street. What the issue was the 5 parcels on the north end of the property, 3 of which have already been annexed. The city would have not allowed that roadway to be constructed outside of city standards because they're addressed, if I'm not mistaken, off of the of Hal Bowen, but their public access is from Fraser Drive. So that was the difference between the city and county requirements.
Any other questions of Jean? Thank you. Item number 15. First reading ordinance 24-27 to amend chapter 6 of the 2001 revised code of the city of Dalton, Georgia, captioned alcoholic beverages to provide for an effective date, to provide for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, to provide for severability, and for other purposes.
Just a quick intro, Mayor, and I will defer to the city attorney. This is a follow-up to the public work session, not Public Works Committee, but the public work session that occurred with the council back in March, where a revised alcohol code was presented for consideration of the council. Since that time, we have worked to address the items that were raised by council, and several changes have been made, which the city attorney will go over. I would also like to offer the fact that since this is a first reading and no action will be taken, this will be a first opportunity for members of the business community to see the ordinance. And we have already talked about the fact that we would potentially have a public town hall or public information meeting between now and the proposed second reading to garner feedback from the business community and share that feedback, those concerns or comments back to the council before the final vote is taken on the ordinance, if the council sees fit. That I'll defer to city attorney.
Start. For these new requirements, would the present entities that are licensed out there be grandfathered in as to these new requirements? Like, for instance, the requirements as to cameras and that kind of thing, would they be grandfathered in?
Grandfathered in such that they don't have to have it.
Until it changed ownership.
That's not the intent. Now, there is an effective date on some of these changes in here. And we can put in effective dates on other changes if we need to, but the intent is to go ahead and have everyone comply with that.
Subject to a phase in. I think Jonathan will review it, but I think most of these have, 6-month phase ins to January 1st or
Most of
something
them
like
start
that.
January 1st.
Subject to any kind of comment or revision. This was just a kind of a starting point.
And so,
I interrupted. Go ahead.
is that okay?
I-
In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all the changes that we did in March. We had an hour-long work session then and covered those issues, but I'm happy to answer questions about those changes too, if you have them. But just to try to walk through the changes that we made in this last round, we added some definitions. We were asked to add a definition of bar just for clarity and ease of reference. And so we added the definition straight from the state code. We also added a definition of scanner for age verification purposes. And later in the code is discussed the scanner requirements. In section 636, and this applies to package stores and bars only, there is a new section that requires security cameras. It does have an effective date of January the 1st. All points of entry would need to have the video camera, and there's a requirement to maintain that footage for 60 days. In section 676, we added a requirement for insurance, commercial general liability insurance to include liquor liability. The city would be the certificate holder. There would be a 30-day notice of cancellation in favor of the city. This is one of those provisions that we found in our review of other cities, that other cities were doing this. In that same section 676, section D, that's where the requirement to use scanners at all points of entry for holders of pouring of distilled spirits licenses. They would have that unless they are restaurants. So there wouldn't be the scanner at points of entry for restaurants. In section 6106, there's a change that requires any changes in the alcohol license to be filed with the clerk within 15 days of the occurrence. There's a new section 6.113. This is the alcohol handlers training requirements. The designated agent and any owner who holds 25% or more of an interest in the business must complete training and submit certification to the clerk at the time of the alcohol license application. And then all persons who are responsible for pouring, mixing, serving, or supervising those individuals would also need to complete alcohol handlers training requirements, and that would there would be a record that would be kept with the business owner. And the approved courses for that, there will be a list in the clerk's office. Then in section 6208G, this is another catch-all type provision relating to application information. We had there have been some instances where businesses have changed. They've said they were restaurants, they became bars, things like that. You would need to file those changes again within 15 days and have an amended application and would continue provided that that amended application is timely. You would continue to operate until mayor and council had the chance to approve or address that license application. So that's the summary of the current changes. Are there any questions?
If I could also add, I think the version presented in March had a serving time termination at midnight. The proposed version, and the edits that have been made, the hours of sale are what state law allows for a community adult Whitfield County size. State regulates that based on countywide population. The maximum serving time is till 2 a.m. And that's what we put in the proposed ordinance. However, I would call your attention to the fact that our two peers in North Georgia that are most similar in population, Gainesville and Rome, they stop serving time at 1:30 a.m. with consumption having to conclude by 2 a.m. So we just put in the maximum that state law allows into the proposed code, subject to feedback from the council.
So
2 a.m. I'll go ahead.
since you talked about the phasing in of this, that we are knowingly in violation of our time on that would be almost immediate, would it not?
That is
already-
immediate.
The time would go into effect
Already,
immediately.
Is not phased in. That's immediate.
Right. In state law, can someone expand, Andrew or Jonathan, on how that decision is made at the state level of what the qualifying criteria are for 2 a.m.? Is it, you said a county our size?
Yeah, I can provide that at the next meeting, but as I recall, it's the state code delineates the serving hours based on bracketed thresholds of population. And I believe the bracketed threshold that Whitfield County falls in is between 75,000 and 150,000, based on the fact that Whitfield County's population's 104,000. It stipulates that our serving time not exceed 2 a.m.
So that, I just want to be clear for the council and for the public, that's not a choice that we have. We can roll back, earlier than that, but we cannot exceed 2 a.m.
That's correct.
Can you please explain the difference between a bar and a restaurant? And then that should be a good segue into Sunday, ability to pour on Sundays.
Sure. So a bar.
This is something that we changed at our local level.
That's correct. A restaurant has a kitchen, a sanitary kitchen. It has seating requirements, things of that nature that bars don't have. And so currently, there's not really the opportunity to have a bar that sells distilled spirits. You can have a bar that sells beer and wine, but you can't have a bar in Dalton right now that would sell distilled spirits. This will change that and would allow that.
So this would allow for a bar that wants to operate as a bar, and if they want to serve food, as long as they're following the health department's rules and regulations, that would be their right to do. But they do not have to meet a 50% minimum if they are classified as a bar and they are licensed as a bar. They can pour on Sunday distilled spirits without, they wouldn't have to follow a food minimum.
Well, that's different. Those are two different things.
Okay,
The bar would allow selling of distilled spirits, but then they would be subject to the scanners and the security requirements and things of that nature that a restaurant would not be subject to. The Sunday sales are governed by the brunch bill and the referendum that was passed several years ago. You have to be an eating establishment, which is a little bit different than a restaurant under our definition. The eating establishment requirements are in the state code, and you have to follow those. And that's another one of those things where we don't have discretion. That just goes by state code.
okay. When we have this work session, which I'm in favor, not work session, excuse me, town hall info session, get feedback. It would be nice if we can, on our screen, show what will be defined as a bar and how we've made that change. So if you wish to be licensed as a bar, what rules you would follow and those for a restaurant. I think that would be very, very helpful.
What I would add, and we've touched on this, but the proposed code provides more flexibility to the businesses. Right now, unfortunately, if you want to sell distilled spirits under the current code, you have to be a bona fide restaurant. Well, under the proposed code, you don't necessarily have to be. However, as the counselor said, it's a state requirement via the brunch bill that in order to sell distilled spirits on Sunday, you have to be an eating establishment. So
We're gonna
we
leave it up there for people to pour distilled spirits and not have to be a
correct.
restaurant.
And so what we would, city clerk, myself, Mr. Pangle, and the counselor have discussed is that we would probably want to allow a 60-day grace period for current establishments to reapply. So if they want a different license type, perhaps they are generally more a bar than a restaurant, they would have a period in which they could reapply at no charge so that they maintain compliance with the code. Because it will be critical as we move forward. The proposed code reinstates the Public Safety Commission hearing requirements when violations occur or citations occur. So it will be critical for businesses to take a close look at what they truly are if they're serving alcohol and come into compliance. And as I said, there are many new choices that a license type can be granted under various situations. But we'll need to publish a kind of a Q&A and informational piece of material at the meeting and following the meeting to explain to the business owners what the options are and help them make clear choices about which license type to reapply for if necessary.
At that meeting, I think it would be helpful if we clearly say what is state law and what is our local decision or proposed decision to make. There are some things are not up for debate because they are state law, for example, the pouring time. Can we expand on the cameras and where in the establishment that those are proposed and why is that a best practice? Where are we getting that?
Sure. The cameras are proposed to be at the entrances. They're not inside, but they're just at the entryways and exit points. That is something that we found in other city codes, and it's best practice in order to one, have security for fights and things like that, but also to make sure that underage people are not entering the premises. It's just another way to try to prevent that.
And Andrew, in peer communities, is that written in their ordinance?
Yes, I believe there were some ordinances that were even more stringent than what's been proposed here in discussions with public safety. What we think is the most critical is just the ingress and egress points to monitor those and be able to recall that data if there is a crime that has occurred. Unfortunately, many of the times that, a fight breaks out or something like that, by the time law enforcement gets there, sometimes it's before the participants leave, sometimes it's after. And so it's very difficult at times for law enforcement to be able to recall what actually occurred. And this provides more tools to the city to be able to evaluate these 911 calls as they come in with complaints about fights or other types of criminal activity or code violations.
And in these changes, how will the city communicate with these license holders? Just through, can we make it where we must get a response from people to understand that they're aware of the updates? If not, perhaps they're paid to visit in person, to make sure that no one says they didn't receive a communication, or will be it sent certified mail, or?
Yeah, defer to the clerk's office, but most license interaction is typically via certified mail. And that way we have a record that it made it to the license holder's address as they presented it to us on the application. And there are certain affidavits that go along with being able to obtain a license. And we could certainly make it part of the requirements, if this code should be adopted, to require the current license holders to sign an affidavit requiring acknowledgement of the ordinance changes. But I would defer to Ms. Chatham if she's got any other thoughts.
Most times we have them hand delivered, so we're making contact with them that way.
For something this extensive though to everyone, would it be reasonable to ask that these communications just be sent? Because every license holder will have to receive one, that they would just be sent certified mail?
We can do that.
Councilmember Farrow or Goodlet, do you all have any questions of
That'd be
Jonathan?
my certified mail.
Certified
Just
mail,
Make sure they got it.
Mr. Lama? Did that, anything, Mr. Mock?
How can you tell someone's age based off of video camera footage going into the bar?
I don't think that was it was that if we do have an allegation that the scanner didn't get, that we could show that someone's presenting a fake ID or something. That was the reference that was given to me, is that then it would be at the entry point of the establishment that they're, produced a fake ID, and that was the reference that was given to me. So is that the purpose?
That's correct.
of-
And it's also, ensuring the security requirements are met. You have video evidence, which is good for business owners as it is for the city. You have evidence that you're doing those things.
Will you accept, would we accept that it be just the Ring doorbell camera type cameras? I mean, this doesn't have to be a closed circuit. Like
There are
ex-
requirements spelled out for exactly what it has to show and those sorts of things in the code.
Okay. I think that's going to be a question as far as expense for people to install. Is that one of your?
Yeah, another concern I had is it's an added expense to business owners in our community.
And it would just apply to bars?
Uh,
And
Bars and pouring establishments that are not restaurants.
That are not restaurants.
That's correct.
So,
I believe it's package stores and
Package-
bars.
I'm sorry, on that one, it's package stores and bars. That's correct.
Madam Mayor, what I could also offer, since March, I believe the city website has had a landing page at the top. If you go to daltonga.gov, all of the prior actions taken by the city as to the alcohol ordinance are memorialized on that. And we will have this proposed draft, if it's not already published, with the date of the public information meeting, so that any interested business owners will be able to find that information very easily.
is this council, and I'm not asking for a vote, I'm just asking a discussion, that a public information town hall type session would be helpful to do, as the professional staff can put that together in the next week or so? And then that would be advertised on our Facebook page. We could put it on our website and make it, and then we could also send that in a communication to our license holders. Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone would be as informed as is reasonable to, and practical to let people know about this. This has gone through many edits, but one of the things that we're focusing on is safety, but we also have to make changes to our ordinance to comply with state law. And I think it's helpful if the community understands that some of these they're not up for debate. Is there anything else?
not on this, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Item number 16, Kroger National Opioid Settlement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you may recall, the city has entered into national settlement agreements with various parties affiliated with the opioid epidemic. The city has entered into a distributor settlement and as well as a retailer settlement. These were negotiated by the state attorney general. A new settlement was reached with Kroger. And the state has asked and given us a deadline whether to opt in or opt out. As I previously shared, we're not certain as to the amount of proceeds that will be given to the city. But I would remind you that as part of this settlement agreement, the funds can only be used for opioid-related expenditures, and we have about a 5-page use agreement, so we can buy things like the reversal drug that can be administered by public safety or any city staff, as well as training and prevention. As you recall, the city hosted some training recently for human trafficking and how the opioid epidemic relates to that. We've also provided funding to the Serenity Club, and this would just allow those funding opportunities to continue if we opt in over the next 5 years to receive disbursements from Kroger.
Any questions? So are you asking for?
A vote to authorize me to sign the settlement agreement.
So I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? There's no other business before this council, and to my knowledge, there are no announcements unless any has any. We will stand adjourned. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to go to adjourn.